A manhunt underway tonight in Texas for a man accused of gunning down 5 of his neighbors, including a 9-year-old boy, because he was angry they'd asked him to stop shooting his rifle off in his yard at 11:30 at night while their baby was trying to sleep. Hundreds of federal and state law enforcement agents now searching for the suspect, 38-year-old Francisco Orpaiza. Now, this story and the circumstances around it are in and of themselves horrifying. But I have to say, I'm perplexed tonight with the response from Texas Governor Greg Abbott, specifically in the way he's chosen to refer to the victims. In a tweet, Abbott referred to the people who died, including the 9-year-old child, simply as illegal immigrants. This was a full day after their names had already been released by police and widely reported. He said, quote, "I've announced a $50K reward for info on the criminal who's killed 5 illegal immigrants Friday. I also directed Operational Lone Star to be on the lookout. I continue working with state and local officials to ensure all available resources are deployed to respond." The tweet included an image of a press release, which again did not mention the victims by name, but just as 5 illegal immigrants. Putting aside that at least one of them, it turns out, was here legally, Governor Abbott had to correct that. I can understand referencing the suspect's immigration status. And Abbott points out that he was in the country illegally as well. Okay. And by the way, I'm not one of those who take offense to the term illegal immigrants. I know many on the left see that as a divisive, grammatically incorrect term and prefer undocumented or arrived in the country illegally, etc. But that's not the point I'm making here. It's just hard to understand why the governor is referring to the victims of a horrific shooting in such a reductive way. I mean, is it even good politics for him to refer to the victims, including a child and 2 women who died protecting other babies in the house, in that way? After all, the governor is clearly doing it on purpose. I mean, he picks his words carefully. In any other situation, it seems we tend to show a level of respect for the people who get killed, and for the victims in this case, their immigration status appears to have had nothing to do with why they were killed. So it just seems bizarre. Can you imagine if this were a different situation with different victims, and one or more of them had committed some kind of crime? Would the governor be referring to all the people killed, including the grade schooler, as the felons who were killed or the criminals who were murdered? The local sheriff, Greg Capers, whose deputies responded to the horrific scene, put it the way I think we would have expected.
My heart is with this 8-year-old little boy. I don't care if he was here legally. I don't care if he was here illegally. He was in my county. 5 people died in my county, and that is where my heart is, in my county, protecting my people.
So I'm just trying to figure out, is this even a good issue for Governor Abbott? And by the way, Governor Abbott is devoting significant resources to finding the killer. Joining me now is Brendan Steinhauser, Texas-based Republican political strategist. Brendan, welcome to the show. Appreciate it. All right, so am I missing something here? Is there a political advantage of labeling the victims just sort of as throwing out the illegal immigrants term?
Well, I don't think there's a political advantage, really. I think the governor certainly has had some backlash today with these comments, and he walked them back a little bit, both on the status of one of the victims and I think just the inartful language, to say the least. But I think if we give the governor the benefit of the doubt, one thing I would say, he has talked about how many illegal immigrants, many migrants coming across the border have been victims of crimes, whether sex trafficking, sexual assault, rape, robbery. And now, of course, we see murder as well. And that has been happening along the border and in Texas. And so perhaps he didn't think things through as well as he should have. Clearly, this got him in some hot water with some folks. But look, I think we have to have compassion for all human beings, regardless of their status. Anybody living in Texas, regardless of their status, is a Texan, a fellow Texan. And I can tell you, I know a lot of the folks who are keeping their eyes and ears open tonight, looking for this man as he probably tries to flee back across the border.
I understand in the context he's talking about, right? People who are here illegally, who become victims of crime, et cetera. People who are trying to smuggle other people across and die in these horrible situations in the back of a truck. But this has nothing to do with that, right? This is it's a family who was murdered because they went next door and asked the guy at 11:30 at night to stop shooting in the backyard or whatever so their baby could sleep. And it just seems that it's unnecessarily cruel. And it almost feels like bad politics. Maybe I'm going too far in thinking it's bad politics to simply refer to the victims, including the child, just as illegal immigrants, no? Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your cable provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.